President Cyril Ramaphosa has signed the Traditional Khoisan Leadership Bill. This despite the land rights activists appealing to him not to sign. They believe Ramaphosa has robbed millions of people living in rural areas of fundamental rights. Now, the Land and Accountability Research Centre says Parliament and the President are not listening to civil society. Talking to us now from Cape Town is Nolundi Luwaya, and she's a director at the Land and Accountability Research Centre. Nolundi, good morning to you. So why should the President not have signed this bill?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Our main concern with the bill is really that it doesn't take into consideration the tenure insecurity of people who live in rural parts of South Africa. So we're very concerned with the impact that the bill will have on the land rights of rural communities. The bill's purpose is, as it says, to recognize traditional leadership, both that of African and Khoisan San communities, but it also lays out the extent and scope of the powers and functions of traditional leaders. And our concern is that when it comes to people's land rights, which are held under customary law, the types of powers that the bill gives to traditional leaders is problematic.
Exactly how will rural communities be affected by this bill or by the signing of this bill?
So the bill has indeed been signed by the President, and what that signing means is that we now just await the President's announcement of a commencement date for the Act. So it's not yet in force, but it will come into force on a date that he will announce. And when it comes into force, what that means is that there are provisions in the Act that allow for traditional leaders to enter into agreements with investment companies. Now, those investment companies can take the form of a mining company, they could potentially be a shopping complex development, but what that means is that people could find themselves in a situation where their land rights have effectively been taken from beneath their feet. So the bill only requires that the traditional leader consult with the community, but it doesn't require their consent. Now, this presents a tension because we have a constitutional court and other court precedent that makes it clear that when it comes to people's informal rights to land, the threshold is that they must give their consent. And of course, this is litigation that took place in the context of Kolobeni recently, and it really is strong litigation and a strong precedent that indicates that the informal rights that people hold to land are strong rights and must be protected and acknowledged. And so while the bill requires consultation, it does not necessarily require consent, and that sets up a very difficult standard and a difficult tension.
And so the plan, therefore, going forward, how do you plan to challenge this?
So sadly, the opportunities to engage with the bill in the parliamentary process are obviously now over, and it seems that the only prospect that we now have is to consider legal action. What we're really hoping is that people will speak out and continue to make clear to the President the impact that this act will have on their lives, what it actually means for their land rights, and hopefully we can continue a mobilization strategy and an advocacy strategy, but really this may well have to go all the way to the Constitutional Court.
You mentioned the case of Kolobeni during the discussion here. Do you know where processes are in as far as that matter is concerned? Are you at the forefront of the fight by that community against the mining company concerned?
So we're certainly not at the forefront, but we do work in solidarity with them. The last that we knew, the Department of Minerals Energy had lodged an application to appeal the judgment that was handed down in that case. At this point, there has been no progress on that appeal, and so the community of Kolobeni still claims the ruling that they got as a victory for their cause.
All right, thank you very much for your time. That was Nolundi Luwaya. She is from the Land and Accountability Research Centre. Let's take a quick